Welcome, everybody, to Wrestling with the 80s. I am your host, BC, back once again after a lengthy layoff to talk wrestling, 80s wrestling, and the biggest icon of the 80s by far, the incredible, the immortal Hulk Hogan. But I'm not alone for this episode, as this is going to be episode one in a three-part series that we're going to do on this. And it's going to be called the Essential Hulk Hogan Match List, because I want to go over basically the matches that every fan of wrestling should probably check out for Hulk Hogan, both older fans and newer fans, especially if you want to get an idea on what this guy was all about. And I know a lot of people see the older years and think, he was no good, but there was a young Hulk Hogan that could move around the ring at one time. And I thought, who better to bring in to have this discussion but the man whose podcast I was on talking about the legacy of Hulk Hogan just a short time ago. It's Andy the Taxman from Grappling with Canada. Andy, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for the invite tonight. I'm very much looking forward to this. Should be a lot of fun.
I really appreciate that you had me on your episode just talking about the death of Hulk Hogan, his legacy, and I really enjoyed how you handled it. You handled it with a lot of grace. It's one of the reasons I didn't do an episode myself, because I didn't want to be the 1,027th podcast that talked about, well, was Hogan this or Hogan that, and so I felt really honored to be able to talk on yours and just treat it the way it should be, as an overarching career, as opposed to two times that he was in the media.
Yeah, for sure. And what I was most thrilled about on that episode was the different views that everybody brought to the table. I thought that everybody did just a fantastic job of just playing it down the middle, right? There wasn't, we weren't out there to, make a self-aggrandizing statement about here's our Hulk Hogan, one way or the other we think about him. We really did play it from not so much a journalistic perspective, but a perspective just telling the overarching story, the through lines that kind of connect fans throughout all the decades. And that's honestly the coolest part for me in that episode, is we did have fans. I know Evan Ginsberg jokes that he's 140 or whatever he says, but we had Evan from the 60s, and we had Benny from the 70s, and we had you from the 80s, and we had myself and my friend Hollywood kind of in that 90s and into the 2000s. So I thought it was a great episode, and not just like I said, a self-aggrandizing episode. Like there was those been done to death, especially about Hogan. I thought what we did was a little bit special, so I was really happy with it, and I was thrilled to have you on it. It was awesome.
No, it's great, and that's why I wanted to have you back on this, because you just said the main reason there. Because for me, the 80s really was my bread and butter as far as wrestling fandom, and just being able to experience the Hulk Hogan of the 80s as a kid, as somebody in that age range that they were really targeting that time. And then really being your bread and butter was the 90s during the whole NWO era and stuff like that. And you were kind of in the target audience at that time. So I think we have some great memories of those time periods in wrestling. Sure, I was watching at that time too, but for me, I still had that 80s red and yellow Hogan in the back of my mind, whereas so it's a little tainted that way, but it's nice to have just the different opinions on it and different thought processes. So I think this is going to be good. So before we get into this episode, I just want you to very quickly just give folks an idea of what they can find over on your channel, Grappling with Canada, on YouTube, because I want to make sure that anybody who's following me here on Wrestling with the 80s, they should be going over and supporting you as well, because you're doing some fantastic work over there.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, I appreciate the awfully kind words. So you can find Grappling with Canada. It's on YouTube. I simply use that wonderful search bar, Grappling with Canada. It's more of an audio project. So if you are into, listening to a podcast when you're at work, it's also available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever what do I always say? I'm out of practice here. Wherever you buy, sell, trade, barter, or sell your favorite podcast, you'll find it. Just simply type in Grappling with Canada. But what we do is we every episode is a deep dive into the history of somebody from Canadian professional wrestling history. So we've done episodes on Stu Hart, George Gordienko. We've done the Monster Ripper, Rhonda Singh. We've done Roddy Piper. That was a 2-part episode, actually. We just did the retrospective on Hulk Hogan, which you were a guest on. I also had you as a guest on a Christmas special of all things as well. So, but most of the episodes, they're 2, 3, 4 hour deep dives, like really getting into the backstory of who this person was, what they meant, not just in professional wrestling, but what they meant to their community, what they meant to the general pop culture, and really just kind of flesh out a lot of their backstories. Because, unfortunately, you look at somebody like a Jack Taylor who, he was a wrestling pioneer. So his run, if you want to call it that, was from the 1910s to the 1940s. And most of that is lost to time. So it takes an episode like the one that I did on that one. I had Nathan Hatton on there. He's done tremendous historical work. And between the two of us, we were able to kind of piece together his trajectory, including wrestling members of the Canadian Expedition Forces before they went out to fight in World War I. Just crazy stories like that. But that's kind of the deep dive information that you'll be able to find on that program.
Yeah, it's awesome. I know you always shoot me down when I say you're one of the more important wrestling historians for Canadian wrestling right now, but I will reiterate that. And it's, for folks, it's specific to Canadian wrestling history, but it doesn't mean it's just Canadian wrestlers, because there's a great episode as well on Adrian Adonis and the whole life and death of Adrian Adonis as well, where it did take place in Canada, actually around my neck of the woods here in Atlantic, Canada. So
absolutely,
yeah, definitely go check out Andy. Yeah, for sure. It's an audio podcast, but that's the thing with YouTube. People love to throw on an audio podcast on YouTube, and hey, he's a couple of hundred short of the magic 1,000 bears. So let's see if we can help get him there. So yeah,
would be awesome.
All right, so we decided to tackle this in a 3-part series. So just so we don't get into a 3-hour broadcast here. But
yeah, we saved that for my channel.
Yeah, exactly. Part 1 should be shorter. Part 2 will probably be the juiciest and longest, and part 3 will probably be the second longest. But part 1, we're going to talk about Hulk Hogan from his time debuting as a wrestler in the 70s up until he finishes up with AWA and is about to head into WWF and begin the whole Hulkamania run back then. So this is part 1 right now. So what we're going to touch on is what we consider essential matches that wrestling fans should check out for Hulk Hogan. We'll talk a little history of Hogan. We'll talk about the runs and maybe fill in the blanks in between. But really, I'm just going to name a few matches, and maybe Andy, those will ring some bells. Maybe you can give some details on them, and we'll just go back and forth on that if that sounds good.
Yeah, sounds tremendous to me, actually. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Okay. All right. So let's get it going. So as far as early Hulk Hogan, he got his start in the late 70s. I think it was 77, if I'm not mistaken, in the Florida area, or was it 79? I'm trying to remember, right? I should have pulled it up right away, but it was down in Florida area. He started off late 70s, did Florida Championship Wrestling, and then Southwest, wasn't it? Southwest Championship Wrestling?
That's correct, yes.
Yes, yeah. So kind of in that southern United States area. He was under a few different names. He was Terry Boulder. He was Terry the Hulk Boulder. He was the Incredible Hulk. He was all this different stuff. And he was kind of getting his gimmick going. I mean, we've all heard the famous stories about his first foray into wrestling, the training, and getting his leg broken by Hiro Matsuda, and then coming back and showing that he's still willing to do this and all that stuff. So you've heard that a million times. I think the area that we could touch on first is where you started to see the sprinkling of Hulk Hogan was the Memphis area, Memphis wrestling. And that's where they had the debut video when he first appeared in Memphis wrestling, where it was the Incredible Hulk, and it was still Terry Boulder at that time, and he was tag teaming with a very familiar name as well, Eddie Boulder, but you would know him better as Brutus Beefcake.
Some of us would know him as Brutus the effing Barber Beefcake, if you will, especially after his stuff in Winnipeg here, but maybe that's for another day.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was Terry and Eddie, the Boulder brothers. So a long history with those two guys, but it was thanks to an appearance on a talk show where he's on at the same time with Lou Ferrigno, who is, played the Incredible Hulk, and sat side by side with Lou Ferrigno and absolutely dwarfed him as far as his size.
Just crazy.
That even the talk show host was kind of saying, well, geez, maybe you should be the Incredible Hulk. and lo and behold, Memphis, Jerry Lawler, Jerry Jarrett, those guys never wanted to give up an opportunity to use a modern cartoon character or comic book character or movie monster, or whatever. They jumped on it, did this great promo video. If you ever want to go check it out, go check it out. Look up on YouTube, Hulk Hogan Memphis wrestling debut. It's fantastic. I love it. It's old school cheese with a touch of really ahead of its time thought, graphics and all that stuff. Have you seen that video yourself?
I've seen that one, and it's funny you say that it's a little bit ahead of its time. It also was in terms of establishing Hulk as a persona. He's not quite there verbally. You can tell it's a little rough in that aspect, but the seeds are there. You could see it just starting to form.
You could see he had the look. He had the look. He was getting down pat. Yeah, you're right. The banter wasn't quite there. A lot of daddies and stuff like that. And a lot more low key as far as the way he's putting out his promos and stuff like that. But the look was getting there, including the mushroom cloud chest hair.
Yeah.
Which,
there's the infamous Jim Cornette. I think he took the first photo of Hogan with the mushroom chest haircut.
Yeah. So the Memphis run wasn't long. It wasn't long before he was getting the call up to the big time, and that was the WWF at the time, East Coast, New York territory, run by Vince McMahon Sr. Brought him on board in late '79, made his debut on November 17th, 1979, and in his first match, it was with Harry Valdez on Championship Wrestling. Now, I'm not telling you to go check this out because of the work rate of this. It's just, how many times do you get to see the biggest star in the history of wrestling, arguably, for younger fans, see what he first looked like in his first WWF match. And this is it here. So have you ever checked out the debut match? I'm sure you've run across it on
I've seen it. Yeah,
YouTube.
It's been years. I should go back and revisit that one. It's been a long time.
I'll be posting pictures from some of these matches that we're talking about as well, so people can kind of see what we're talking about. But Harry Valdez looks like he just pulled out of the crowd and had never wrestled a day in his life. So Hogan was you have a green Hulk Hogan with a very, very, very green enhancement talent at that time. So it was kind of tough. But you saw the makings of Hulk Hogan. Again, he had that mushroom cloud body hair. He had long blue tights. He didn't have the yellow tights at this point. Very raw, but you had Freddie Blassie, managing him. And, it was just, you also had young Vince McMahon Jr. doing the commentary on it, and he was, even at that time, he was drooling over Hulk Hogan in the commentary, right?
I was gonna say that the two things I do recall from that was obviously Blassie, because I'm a huge Blassie. I love Freddie Blassie, but that was the start of the Vince McMahon drooling phase over the Hulk Hogan.
Yes, you could just feel it coming through there, and of course, this is 1979. Your world champion is Bob Backlund at this time. And, this is year 2 of Backlund's run in 1979. Right. So Hogan, yes, he was brought in. He was going to fight Backlund a few times. But really, he was brought in for Andre the Giant. That's who they were setting him up. They wanted a big, large opponent for Andre the Giant that made it believable that he would actually, possibly beat the Giant. So that's what they were going for. There is, I didn't list in this one because, again, it's hard to get sometimes to get videos of this stuff, but there is a few matches with Backlund and Hogan that are pretty darn good matches from that run. I think it's in 1981, if I'm not mistaken. You even get one where it's pretty impressive with Backlund because he ends up lifting Hogan over his head on a couple of arm bars and stuff like that. So you forget just how strong Bob Backlund was at the time. But yeah, so if you can get your hands on that, check out Hogan Backlund. Again, it's a green Hulk Hogan, but it's nice to see the contrasting styles of those two. But the main match, the first one that we're going to talk about, aside from this debut match, that you really need to check out, it's from August 9th, 1980. It's the Showdown at Shea. It's obviously the main event is Larry Zbyszko and Bruno Sammartino. Just a tremendous grudge match.
Barn burner.
Oh, from a tremendous feud.
Yeah.
What a feud that was.
Oh,
what a
my
great
God,
storyline. Yeah. Great storyline. And if people have never checked that out, please do yourself a favor and go check that out, because
Zbyszko with one of the top heel turns in wrestling history. Just unbelievable magic.
Yes, and Bruno's just so believable too. Yeah. And I mean, we're talking about Bruno who'd been retired for a number of years too. I mean, and just pulled off this great feud, just a simple storyline as far as he didn't want to fight the guy that he was training and bringing into the business. But anyways, that was the main event of the Showdown at Shea. But what people also remember from the Showdown at Shea is the matchup between Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan. So this was set up there was a couple of preliminary matches on Championship Wrestling, on WWF Championship Wrestling, where Hogan and Andre had met, and Hogan had actually had used a loaded elbow pad to bust open Andre, and that was pretty shocking for the time because not too many people got the better of Andre, and you had Hogan do this. It was a very quick match, but it set up really the intensity of this feud, which led to the match at Shea Stadium. So your thoughts on that match? I'm sure you've checked this one out in your time, Andy. So your thoughts on the Andre Hogan, the one we never heard about in '87.
Yes.
They never met before. They never got, and Hogan never body slammed Andre. So
just two things real quick, because the narrative in the 90s and onward was always that, Hulk Hogan was a massive baby face until the NWO. Well, here we have the early Hogan where he's the heel, and you really get to see that progression of how he worked real green. You could see the Freddie Blassie influence, actually, I found in that program. And it was a good match for where Hogan was at the time, but it was a great launching pad for him to have that match against Andre. And that's really what you could tell, that even in that era, they were really starting to plant seeds that, hey, this guy could be the next big thing. Not quite there yet. He had a long way to go, but the seeds were getting planted.
Yeah. And, some people might ask, well, why do you have Freddie Blassie? We're talking about Hulk Hogan, promo guy. That's what he's known for. And it's not that Hogan was a horrible promo at the time, but he was still a little bit more reserved with his promos at that time. And of course, the thing with the WWF or WWF back in that time period, every heel had a manager back then, because they had some of the greatest managers of all time working in that territory.
Well, and Blassie, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but Blassie specifically was the heater. So you'll remember he was Piper's manager when Piper made the debut for the WWF, right? Everybody that they thought was going to be somebody normally would have had Blassie as their mouthpiece to really light the fire, really get him going. So it is interesting. Like, again, like I laid it out earlier, right? You really see that the WWF was really starting to invest and really seeing what this kid at the time could do.
Yeah, exactly. So in the match, and I want to tell people, if you're checking these things out now in this day and age, Of course, it's not going to be 14 Hurricanranas. It's not going to be, Canadian destroyers and stuff like that. What it is going to be is it's going to be psychology. And, God forbid that we use that in a wrestling match nowadays, and it's going to be heels being heels and faces being faces and actually the fans getting into that. So take that with a grain of salt. This is your typical slow, plodding, big man match. But you think about it, you've got Andre the Giant was probably at that time the biggest, most well-known wrestling star in the world at that time. You had Hulk Hogan, who they knew was the up-and-coming guy. He was going to be the guy at some point. And, it's just your typical big man match. What was, notable for was the fact that, this is setting the seeds for what's going to happen 7 years from now and be, the biggest match of all time. It was interesting when I watched it again because you kind of forget some things. You've seen it years ago and you go back and it's like one of the things was, so Andre at the finish, he gets Hogan with a big splash in order to finish him off. Hogan clearly kicks out at 2. I mean, clearly.
Yes.
It's like he was not down for 3. It's kind of ironic because that's what happened, years later during the main event when he clearly kicks out or gets the shoulder up. But so even then, they're protecting Hogan with the kick out. Now, they didn't really focus too much on it, or they didn't talk too much about it, like, oh, he was robbed or stuff like that. But as they gave the heel a note, he could say, you didn't pin me. I kicked out at 2, so you have that. And that was very important back today to protect the heels. You had a lot more clean finishes, but you had ways to protect the heels, and that was one of them in that case. So, it was just interesting to see that. And then at the end of the match, after it's over, Hogan once again loads up the elbow pad, does another job on Andre. Andre does a great blade job, to be honest with you, on this one. He's a Crimson Mask, which again, they knew they had to, get Hogan's heat back. They had to show that this guy is a force to be reckoned with. And I think they did a great job in this match, and especially considering this is just an undercard for the big main event. But any other thoughts on the Showdown at Shea match?
Well, it's funny you mentioned it's kind of a slower match that was more Andre's style, but it's not the Andre you would see in the 90s, right? Yeah. He could still move pretty good, especially back then. So great. It was a great showcase match, in my opinion. That's really what it ended up being. And I thought they both delivered in that aspect.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So going from there, again, we could touch on tons of matches and stuff like that, but I'm going to jump right away to later on after his WWF run. So of course, between Hogan stuck around to about 81 in the WWF, and there's a real important reason why he ended up leaving the WWF, and it wasn't because of the fact that he got beat or he didn't want to be there anymore. He got offered to play an important role in the movies. He was going to be Thunderlips in Rocky III.
That's right.
And ironically enough, at that time, Vince McMahon Sr. did not like the idea of having a wrestler be in the movie and go off and do the movies. So Vince McMahon Jr. was probably pulling his hair out, knowing that the opportunity that was presented for him, that you could have one of the biggest stars going at the time. But Vince said it's either you don't take the movie or you're done. And Hogan said, that's it, I'm done. The nice thing was that he was getting a lot of work over in Japan, and he was a big deal over in Japan. So it's not like he was going to be on the unemployment line. He knew he was good for gigs, but pretty bold move by Hogan to just say, no, I'm gonna take the movie role. And it just goes to show he knew his worth, and he knew he had a keen mind for self-promotion as well.
So it's interesting because I know that was about 81, but in 80 is when we first see Hulk Hogan make it on any of the. So back in the day, they used to have the Pro Wrestling Illustrated, list, the top list. Well, he made his first listing on the most hated wrestler list. 1980 finished 4th. So right away, and a lot of that was part of the Andre program. So he's able to parlay that notoriety into the Thunderlips role. And I mean, again, we're watching his aura build.
Yes. Yeah.
And betting on himself. I mean, it takes guts. Yeah, he had the Japan, and I'm sure we'll touch a little bit on the Japan stuff. But I mean, back then, if you shun a major promotion, that's it. You're not getting work anywhere at that point. It's not the days of guaranteed contracts like it is today.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, pretty bold move, but as they say, it paid off pretty well for him.
Yeah, and this is one of the biggest promotions in the United States as well. So I mean, it's not just he's leaving Florida and going to do the movie. He's leaving New York to go to do the movie. So it was a bold move, but certainly paid off for him. And what's amazing too is, I mean, he had, I don't know what, 5 minutes of screen time in that movie, and he just exploded off the screen. And we're talking about a movie that also had Mr. T, Carl Weathers, Sylvester Stallone, and you can, one of the things you remember from that movie is Hulk Hogan as Thunderlips. So that's pretty impressive. And we're not talking about the Hulk Hogan that we knew all along. This is really his star vehicle. This is what really bumped him up quite a few notches in the, what do you call it? The culture landscape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what really put him in the mainstream at that point.
Yes.
Because it's one thing to, the WWF was a big territory, but it's just a wrestling territory. That's not to denigrate it, but that's the reality, right? Mm-hmm. To break into the mainstream, this is really the start of when that starts to happen. And he really, in that role, paved the way for guys to make that jump later on, like Roddy Piper, for example, with They Live was the big one. So it is an interesting kind of paving the way, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I believe what really led to Hogan getting the call too was Terry Funk and his previous role with Stallone as well.
That's right.
Paradise Alley wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. So and it's kudos to Stallone because he had a lot of respect for the wrestlers too. And
big time.
Yeah. So great stuff. So as we mentioned, when Hogan made that move, he was pretty confident because he did have his gig over in Japan. Now, we talked about this off air. I mean, we could, from 81, 82, 83, I mean, Hogan had a lot of matches in Japan. He had tag team matches. He had, he was in the tag team tournaments. He won the IWGP championship. I'm not a Japan guy, so I can't name off every accolade and stuff like that. This is the whole point of this is to, find matches for people to watch that they're going to be able to get their hands on. It's going to be a little bit tougher to get the hands on those matches in Japan unless you're either a tape trader or you have the actual app or whatever. But let's touch a little bit on his run in Japan because Hulk Hogan Ichiban, he was the guy for a little while over there. And I mean, you had guys like Antonio Inoki putting Hulk Hogan over. He's winning the IWGP championship. It was all premeditated with the fact that WWF at the time had a relationship with New Japan as well. So that helped out. So you had a lot of stars that were going over there, but he became a pretty big deal in Japan. So Andy, I mean, if you can touch on this a little bit, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, so the Japan runs were interesting because now it's, a lot of people will go back and say, oh, his best work was in Japan. I disagree with that. Mm-hmm. They're great matches. It's what is it? Him and shoot, I can't remember who it is. I'll pull it up in a second, but it's him and somebody against the Road Warriors is a tremendous match. For example,
it's him and oh geez, yeah, you're right. It's not Fujinami?
No, yeah, maybe I'll pull it up in a second. But anyways, so that's a lot of tag team work. And which is interesting because as he would progress in the AWA and WWF, there's far less of the tag team aspect. But it is interesting to see his how he gets over there, and the crowds were crazy for him. Like, I mean, if you've never seen a Japan crowd, I'm not talking about today's modern Japanese crowd. I'm talking about the 70s, 80s. Japanese crowds were very reserved, very polite, very respectful, until you got them riled up. So you would see them go absolutely ballistic for Hogan. And I mean, you made the joke in jest about, all of his accolades in Japan, and everybody talks about, he had his best 5-star matches, but he actually did. He won. He was the Tokyo Sports Outstanding Foreigner Award in 1983, and that was a big deal. To be the top foreigner in Japan in the Japanese media was a big deal. This is back in the day when they had 5 or 6 weekly wrestling magazines, and they would fly off the shelves. So, I mean, if you're getting that kind of accolade, you're cooking.
Yeah, for sure. I just looked at it. It was Tenryu.
Tenryu, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was from 91, that match. And a lot of people, it's so funny. You see modern fans, they see that one clip of his match with Muta or whatever, and he does a Insaguri or whatever it is, and people go bananas like, oh, see, Hogan could wrestle. He knew the moves. He can only do them in Japan. He's only allowed to do them in Japan. It's like, no, he knew the moves, but he also knew his character, and he knew that what he needed to do to get over in North America, and that's what he did. He was a master of psychology and working the fans and stuff like that. So he knew he didn't have to, have the 5-star match every time. He just needed to get the fans into the match and the emotion. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But it just with his Japan run, I mean, like I say, just look. I mean, the thing was, when you go over there, you're wrestling every night in these tournaments and stuff like that. There's some great 6-man matches that he had with some of the North American stars against the Japanese stars. He had tag team with like Stan Hansen and Bobby Duncum Jr. or Bobby Duncum Sr. and all these different people. And you even saw the beginnings of Hollywood Hogan with the black beard and the Fu Manchu and stuff like that. So you do see it, but I'd say that run that he had from 81 to 83, you really saw some great Hulk Hogan wrestling matches, and a guy that can move and a guy that was learning how to do it. And that was one thing. He did learn how to wrestle a lot better over there for sure. So it definitely had an influence in his style for sure.
Well, a lot of that too is a big credit to Inoki. This is also at that time there was still the bit of wrestling war. New Japan and All Japan still had the rivalry, right? So they're always trying to one up each other. Well, when Inoki, I should specify, would get Hogan and heat him. Pronouns, goddamn pal. When he would get him heated up in the territory, it was a boom for him. So obviously he's going to invest his time to make sure that Hulk is showcased as best as possible. And I mean, honestly, it's funny. You listen to guys talk about, Hogan had his five moves or whatever and was boring here, but Stan Hansen had the lariat.
Yeah.
But you're going to tell me that Stan Hansen wasn't over as anything? He was a god over there, right? Because same thing, he was built properly as just a monster force, a monster gaijin, and just it's the same formula, right? And Inoki deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, and of course, Hogan, traditionally known for using the leg drop as his finisher. His finisher over there was the Axe Bomber, which was right. Running forearm smash type of move that just a little different side of Hogan. I would have liked to have seen him use that a bit more in the WWE.
Same here.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool, and that's how he won the IWGP title against Inoki. Talk about keeping your former champ strong. He won it on basically on a count out victory, but it was he wasn't going to pin Inoki, so that was fine. But the fact that he put him over in the first place was pretty amazing. That's a legend that's putting him over. So yeah, cool stuff as far as the Japanese. So if you want to go to your way to check that out, there's a litany of matches you can check out there. So I don't think you can go wrong. So during this run in Japan, he's a man without a home in the United States. So where does he end up landing? Well, a territory that you're familiar with, the AWA. He shows up there in 1981, mid to late 1981, and under the management of another familiar face that we'll know from years later, His manager is Luscious Johnny Valiant, and he shows up as a heel in 1981 in the AWA. Do you remember Luscious Johnny Valiant and the Hulk Hogan connection?
Well, Johnny Valiant was over here in Winnipeg. Like he was over everywhere. Evan mentions him all the time as one of his favorite wrestlers. But an interesting pairing to say the least. And I mean, Valiant was a master of getting himself over, and this is at the time again when Hogan's on the ascension. So a bit of an interesting pairing, but it is interesting too that Hogan had a ton of matches up here in Winnipeg in the 80s, and people forget, the narrative now is, WWE took wrestling out of the smoky bingo halls or whatever that garbage is. But you look at some of these AWA cards, even just with Hogan on it. I'll put just a random one up quickly here.
Mm-hmm.
So we got an 83 with the AWA, and you're talking there's 10,000 fans in the old Winnipeg Arena. And listen to this match here. So we have Brunzell defeating Billy Graham, Greg Gagne. I know, insert joke here, but he is over in Winnipeg, beating Bill White, Masa Saito, beating Baron von Raschke, Dave Schultz versus Hogan. Ended up as a no contest, but sent the fans were just nuts for it anyways. You had Rick Martel and Mad Dog Vachon and Andre the Giant. There's a team, hey, against Patera, Blackwell, and Sheik. And then Rick Martel ends up winning a 20-man battle royal that has Hogan as well. And it actually comes down to Hogan and Martel. Martel wins it. So, I mean, this is 83. Well, I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, but
yeah,
the Minneapolis territory, the AWA territory was hot through that whole run. And this is really when you start to see Hogan really move up the ladder.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think fans really take into account how important the AWA was in Hulk Hogan's career, to be quite honest. And part of it is that's because the winners always tell you the stories for history. And of course, WWE put them out of business and stole all their stars basically. So, and they get to write, the unreal history of AWA or whatever you want to call that video that they put out for them. So you're going to see their side of things. But when you go back and actually look through the years of 81 to 84 in the AWA and a little bit beyond that too, because once Hogan left, you had the Road Warriors come in. They kind of kept that momentum going for a little bit. But the Hogan years in AWA, that place was on fire. And I mean, when people go back and actually see who he was fighting, you realize, holy crap, that's basically the rock and wrestling era in WWF, in the mid 80s. So Hogan, he enters in 81. This is showing already just what the charisma the guy had, because he comes in as a heel, and about 2 weeks later, the fans are basically demanding that he becomes a babyface.
They didn't have a choice but to change him.
Didn't have a choice, so he basically does a run in to save Brad Rangans from Jerry Blackwell, Crusher Blackwell, and just all of a sudden he's a babyface. I've checked out a couple of matches with Blackwell. Blackwell, I know, is an impressive big man as far as his abilities. The Hogan matches were, again, they weren't the best. I mean, there was a 4-minute chin lock in there at one point in the match, but
I think he was trying to settle him down, is what it was.
Yeah. But and Hogan was like a ball of fire in those early because he's learning how to be a babyface. But I'll tell you, a match that I would suggest people check out is from March 4th, 1982. It's Hulk Hogan versus Bobby Duncum Sr., I guess you would call it, because Bobby Duncum Jr. was in WCW during the 90s, during the NWO era. But Hogan and Bobby Duncum Sr., you kind of, if you're not familiar with Bobby Duncum, he has a look like a young Stan Hansen, the big cowboy with the long blonde hair and just a wild man, basically. So it was a great brawl, to be honest with you. I'm not sure if you've ever seen this match before, Andy, but it's young into his heel run. It was, or his face run. He started off feuding with Crusher Blackwell. and then moved on to feud with the Heenan family. And Bobby Duncum was part of the Heenan family along with Ken Patera, Nick Bockwinkel, of course, so, and Bobby Heenan was doing a lot of wrestling that time too. So
that's right. Yeah. And that was really the start of their decade-long feud as well.
And it's funny, you start to see Hogan, you start to see how he did have some loyalty to his friends. I know they always call him the ultimate politician back there, but think about a guy like luscious Johnny Valiant who ends up in the WWF, Bobby Heenan, Gene Okerlund, David Schultz, Jesse Ventura, all these guys, that end up going to the WWF when Hogan heads on over and starts his big run there, because one, he knew he could work with them, he knew he could trust them, and he wanted to help out some friends. So the whole Bobby Heenan feud begins in the AWA.
Yeah, that's right. For as much flack as he gets about only working with the same people, I mean, there's reasons for that, right? And you see it especially in the WWF run. You've got to, like, he's working 300 days a year, whatever it ended up being, but you start to see that camaraderie really start to build in the AWA. And like you just said, all the guys kind of either went before or went right after him. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah, for sure. So the reason he was fighting Bobby Duncum, because again, he's part of the Heenan family, because Hogan's got to run the gauntlet, go through all the guys that are blocking the way to get to the world champion, which is Nick Bockwinkel. But he finally does get to him. So April 18th, 1982, Hulk Hogan finally gets his world title shot against Nick Bockwinkel. Now, I'm sure you've checked this match out.
Quite a few
times. Yes. Why don't you, I'll let you give your thoughts on this match, because I have some thoughts as well. But I'll let you go and give your opinion on this whole match situation. Because there's two Bockwinkel matches, and this is the first.
So, how do I want to phrase this? You know what? We'll phrase it politically. So this was supposed to be the passing of the torch to Hulk Hogan. Unfortunately, Bockwinkel wasn't ready to pass the torch, and this is still when Verne Gagne as much as Hogan was loyal to his friends, Verne Gagne was much more loyal to the guys that really built that territory. So that's why guys like Bockwinkel, like Baron von Raschke, Zbyszko just had long runs. There's a reason for it.
Yeah.
So this was supposed to be the torch passing moment, and there's a little reluctance to pass the torch, if you will, on in this match specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, just to give you an idea what happened if you haven't seen the match, and I highly encourage you to check it out. So Hogan, obviously, it was obvious he was just throw the strap on him, let him run with it. He is taking off like crazy. We have Rocky 3 coming out. You could have one of the stars of the film with your world championship title on there and basically kick the ass of WWF at the same time if they wanted to. But you get Hogan. It was a good match, by the way. I mean, Bockwinkel walked through a great match. Nick
Bockwinkel worked his ass off. He really did, actually.
Oh, fantastic wrestler. And yeah, just your typical, in the style of a Ric Flair or even like a Kurt Hennig or somebody like that, is going to make your opponent just look like $1 million in there. And he made Hogan look like $1 million. He gets the ending is Heenan's trying to interfere. And by the way, Heenan was phenomenal in this match too. I love Heenan. Heenan tries to interfere, tries to toss a foreign object to Nick Bockwinkel. Hogan catches it, intercepts it. The ref is distracted with Heenan trying to get him off the apron. Hogan hits Bockwinkel with the foreign object, gets the 3, and that eruption might have been bigger than the eruption at Madison Square Garden for when he beat the Iron Sheik. Those fans went ballistic
Yes.
on the count of three. And I think they said they had like around 20,000 in attendance or something like that
Yeah.
in the Civic Center there in Minnesota. I mean, that crowd went ape. And the one thing was, old school AWA, the arena's blackened for the match. So you're just seeing the spotlights on the wrestlers in the ring. And as soon as that 3 count hits and the bell rings, the lights come on and the place exploded. And I mean, I had chills listening to that eruption from the fans. And then Heenan was, oh my God, the job that Heenan did, just going ballistic, arguing with the referee. So they pulled what we would call in these days a dusty finish on this one, because you were led to believe that Hulk Hogan won the championship. And then I think it was 2 days later or 3 days later, they reversed the decision because of the foreign object, keep the championship on Nick Bockwinkel. This was their chance to just ride a wave of absolute stardom, and they blew it on this one.
So did you ever hear the reasoning why?
Well, I have always heard at this time, it was just Vern just wanted to have, either somebody that was loyal to the family as a champion, and he wanted to have like somebody with amateur credentials as a champion. I know now on the second time it was disagreements over the merchandise and stuff like that. But do you have a different story?
One. So for the first one, so both of those are correct.
Yeah.
Vern also misplayed his hand because he thought, somewhat correctly, but it obviously didn't go this way. He thought that if they had the rematch, and Hogan went over, that it would be bigger business.
Yeah.
And he was projecting he would have projected that run into 86. I think he was prepared to give a couple year run, but that he figured if they did the finish that way and then came back with the rematch, that it would be even bigger and set the territory off more. It was obviously, in hindsight, the wrong call on many levels, but I think this is one of the ones where, a booker can outthink himself, right? If you got something hot, you need to capitalize, and that was the moment to do it. And, politics, baby, they just get in the way sometimes.
Well, as I say, with the babyface, the money is in the chase, except when you have a megastar like a Hogan, an Austin, or something like that. Just put the belt on them and let them go, right? It's one of the interesting decisions. And I get it. Yes, you can get, if they had to throw the strap on them the next match, okay, the fans are back on board with you. They believe in you. They trust the decision. But what happened next, of course, was Hogan ends up demanding a handicap match between Bockwinkel and Heenan and himself to get another title shot. And he wins that match. Another fun match. Heenan involved is always going to make it fun. They have a second match between Hogan and Bockwinkel. I believe this is in June of 82, if I remember correctly. And it's a DQ finish. And that right there, to me, that pretty much killed things for them. Now, just like we always talk about, you look back, you say the finger poke of doom killed the NWO or whatever, right? But of course, you didn't see the final death nail until a year later.
Yeah.
Same thing with this. It's not like it killed it immediately, but I think right there you just screwed them twice, and you showed the fans this isn't happening at this time. Now, they did a good job. They played it out. Hogan, went absolutely bananas after this and beats, Bockwinkel.
So did the fans too, by the way. They were pissed.
Yes, yeah. And then they played it the right way. Hogan just says, "I'm leaving AWA. I'm getting screwed over on this. I'm not coming back." But he doesn't do it in a sooky way. It's just more so, I've let the fans down. I can't show my face again after promising the fans that I was going to win that title, which is great. He had his commitments in Japan, so it was a good way to write him off for that time period.
Yeah,
cool him down a bit. He comes back in late 82. He went after saying, I'm not going to ever come back again. So 3 months later, he's back, and they now have to keep him busy because they're setting up the final match with Bockwinkel, which is going to be Super Sunday in 83 with April of 83 with Bockwinkel. Pretty much a prelude to Starrcade and WrestleMania, to be quite honest. So they keep Hogan busy, and there's a couple of great matches during that time period. One of them I really enjoyed was Hulk Hogan versus Adrian Adonis. This is from October
yeah.
October 17th, 1982. I mean, Adonis was a leaner, meaner selling machine at this point, right? And so you have that rung a bell with you.
Was he doing the biker gimmick then?
Kinda, yeah. He was in the tag team with Jesse Ventura, right?
Okay, that's what. Okay, yeah,
yeah. So that was the North-South connection, I believe. Because it was Murdoch, the North-South, and then this is the East-West connection with Ventura. But yeah, so just to see Adrian, like he's a lot lighter there, and he's moving. Although Adrian, even as big as, could still move.
He could move, yeah.
He was a selling machine for Hogan, and it was a great match because it's just, Hogan was really starting to come into his own after having a bunch of matches with guys like Patera, Bockwinkel, Adonis, guys like this.
Well, Martel as well.
Martel,
just a tremendous ring general.
Tag teaming with the high flyers and different people. So he's really learning his craft at this time and learning to work the audiences and stuff like that. Even at this point, we're starting to get the Hulk Hogan promos down too, because even in his early days with the AWA, he still had kind of that more so, I'm going to show you my back and show you how big I am. But he wasn't like, the brother promos, but it was, I think it was right after that whole screw job finish on the one where he left. That's when the promos started to really come to form, and he was the people's champion. He was the uncrowned champion and stuff like that. So you're really seeing the Hulk Hogan that we're getting used to. But yeah, go check out that Adrian Adonis match if you get a chance, because both for Hogan and for Adonis, because it's just so nice to see Adrian Adonis work. He's one of my favorite workers back in the 80s, so and then he had, a lot of 6-man tags with the High Flyers, which was Brunzell and Greg Gagne, against Jesse Ventura, Ken Patera, Bobby Heenan, like all just it's just like, let's keep Hogan busy. Let's keep him away from the title. Let's cool him off, that type of thing. We're going to build him back up. So surely come Super Sunday, that's when we're going to put the belt on Hulk Hogan. He's going to be the new AWA champion. So April 24th, 1983, Hulk Hogan versus Nick Bockwinkel. You tell us what happened, Andy. Of course they put the belt on him, right?
Oh, yeah. In an alternate universe, they put the belt on him, and you're watching AWA. Well, they wouldn't call it Raw or SmackDown, as our great friend Evan calls it. But
yeah,
no,
we're watching Wrestle Rock 41 this year.
Yes. No, this was their finger poke of doom moment.
Yeah,
and there is something that you mentioned earlier that I wanted to quickly backtrack on.
Sure, yeah.
And it's one of the smartest things I've ever heard Eric Bischoff say. And it's, you don't know if something is working or if it kills you until 6 months later.
Yes.
And especially back then, right? You don't have the automatic or immediate returns. If your program is working, you gotta wait and see. And boy, it didn't kill them that night, but that was within a year. I mean, the AWA is in shambles.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I truly feel like that second screw job, not this last one. I feel like the second one.
No, the second one is the one that really hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because the problem, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, let's go ahead. Yeah.
But the problem with the third match is the fans were already, they had that thought that this is what's going to happen again. And when it did, it was like, that's it.
Yeah. So you can refer to this as the screw job that led Hogan to the WWF. They basically just handed Hogan over to the WWF. Now, it didn't happen right. People think that, oh yeah, he got screwed over in that match in May of 83 and that's it. He left, he went to the WWF. No, that's not how it happened. Obviously, we talked about a little earlier. There was a lot of problems between him and Vern. Vern still was not on board with having a non-amateur wrestler as his champion, the lead of the company, the Hollywood guy, all that stuff. Also, Hogan was a very savvy businessman, and he was making a lot of money on merchandise. And that's when everybody thinks Hulkamania started in WWF. It started in the AWA. The first time
That's
he
right.
mentions really Hulkamania to the mainstream is in 1982 in an interview with Johnny Carson. And go watch that. You want to see a different Hulk Hogan then. What a shy guy, nervous guy he was in that interview. But he that's the first time he brings up Hulkamania for the mainstream, and he talks about there's a new thing happening. It's called Hulkamania. This is 82. This is right as Rocky's being released. This is just after, I think, the whole first Bockwinkel match. So, I mean, you had lightning in a bottle. He was selling T-shirts. He was selling posters. He's becoming a phenomenon. And for some reason, but Gagne just didn't put the title on. He wanted that. They say it comes down to the merch money. I think it was more than that, but he was being pretty demanding of what he wanted for his cut for the merch money too.
Well, I know merch was one of the bigger sticking points.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, I think it came down to Hogan wanted the guarantees.
Yeah.
He wanted to be guaranteed the guy. And you mentioned it a few times, right? Vern was very leery about putting his title on somebody who didn't have the amateur background. Well, that goes back to, dealing with the NWA. And that was always the calling card, right? The champion was somebody who could handle themselves outside of the ring just as much as they could handle it inside. That's not Hogan. And that's again just that old, not seeing the forest for the trees, if you will. And that was it. It was like you said, it wasn't like he, they had the match and he just leaves and that's it. It was, but that was the beginning of the end, like truly the beginning of the end for Hogan's relationship with the AWA. Yeah.
And I mean, and you watch the match again, it's another screw job. We see Hogan get the 3 count on this one. He's holding the title up. The crowd does pop for it. They go again.
But it's not the same.
No, it's not the same pop. It's not the same pop because they're just waiting. It's like it's no different than the NWA in the late 80s after so many dusty finishes. Whenever somebody beat Flair for the title, they're just waiting. Okay, what's going to happen here, right? Or they talk about nowadays when the fans, whenever something going on in the ring, they just look back at the entrance to see, okay, who's coming in to do the run in, right? So you've trained them that way, and that they were trained. There was a nice pop for it, but if you go look at those matches side by side, the second pop was not as big as the first one.
No, not even close.
And you're right,
it was far less.
Yeah. So I think if I remember correctly, it was they overturned the decision based on Bockwinkel had Hogan in a sleeper. Hogan goes over to the ropes, and Bockwinkel goes over the top rope because of Hogan's kind of leaning over the ropes. And back then, the AWA had the rule
he couldn't DQ finish over the top. Yep.
And that's the worst part. Such a weak thing. I mean, it was such a weak way to do it. So again, twice they've taken the title off of Hogan. And that's it. Like, you cannot recapture the lightning at that point. It's done. So Hogan doesn't finish up that day or anything like that. He still has till November or December in his contract, he still has his commitments till those dates. He ends up finishing off, a couple of matches with Jesse Ventura, which it's nice to see a younger Jesse Ventura as well. Like Jesse never was the smoothest in the ring, but he had the look and he had the rap and all that stuff.
I love Jesse Ventura. But he's such a, I love everything about Ventura.
He's such a wrestler. He's such a wrestler.
Oh yeah. Sorry. No, go ahead. And then I just want to backtrack some after. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and I was just going to say, and then his last real major feud is Masa Saito is his last major feud in the AWA, and then he finishes off some dates. So yeah, go ahead there.
Well, no, I just wanted just to reiterate too, like how much he's climbing the ladder. So you look at the magazines, right? He's most popular wrestler PWI in 82. He's the best babyface in the Wrestling Observer in 83. He's the Wrestler of the Year in 83.
Yeah.
Most inspirational wrestler in 83. Then you fast forward to 84. He's the best babyface wrestler of the year. He wins the Thez Award. Most popular. Like it was the time to capitalize. I mean,
we joke, but yeah, the AWA, if they just could have, acted on it, who knows what would be happening right now in the wrestling world?
That's why I wanted to make the point earlier about the crowd sizes, right? Like, when the AWA is hot, we're not talking. They weren't running 1,000-seat arenas. They're doing 10, 15, 20,000 seat sellouts consistently. And, you flash forward to 88 and, they're doing, I think they were doing 800 people in the Winnipeg arena.
Yeah.
I mean, they just killed it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unreal. But anyway, so Hogan goes to about the end of 1983, and then famously, as depend on who you believe and their story, because Greg Gagne has his version of the story as to how things ended. And
he sure does, doesn't he?
He always has a very Gagne-esque version of the story, and of course, Hogan had his version of things. But basically, from what we're told, is Hogan sent a letter off to Vern and Greg and said, like, that's it, I'm done. This is in December, after Vince had met with them and just told them, we're going to put the strap on you if you come over to the WWF, and we're gonna ride you. You're gonna be the guy. And so he saw, and not only that, but it's not just that he wanted to get the belt. He saw the plan that Vince McMahon Jr., I should mention, had in place for the WWF and basically the global domination they were about to embark on. And he knew that he needed Hogan. That was his centerpiece for that whole thing. So Hogan in December sends a letter off to Vern and says, I'm done. I'm out of here. And late December, we're going to see Hogan show up at Wrestling at the Chase, I believe, in St. Louis, and for his first match in WWF since 1981. But that's where we're going to end this episode at. So this is part 1. So this is has been our view of Hogan pre Hulkamania WWF style, and in part 2, we're going to talk about his 84 to 93 WWF journey. So before we take off one more time, Andy, where can people find you and where can they support you?
Sure. You can find Grappling with Canada on any major podcasting platform or on YouTube. Use whatever search bar is at your convenience. Just type in Grappling with Canada. It'll come right up, and hope you enjoyed. If you do, you can shoot me an email at 6sidepod@gmail.com. I read everything everybody sends, and I do respond to everything. So if you like what you are hearing, or you got any suggestions or comments, feel free to drop me a line.
Perfect. All right. You ready to come back for part 2 on this one?
Looking forward to time travel, partner.
All right. Well, for in the meantime and in between time, we'll let it go. We'll let it go for this episode, but come back for part 2. The WWF Rock and Wrestling years for Hulk Hogan. We'll see you then.